Thursday. Happy Thursday. What is going on, everybody? You know, it's Dallas Cowboy talking. It's tacos and touchdowns. How's it going? It's your boy Aaron B. And I got my co host Shane in the building. How's it going, Shane? Uh, did we lose Shane? Uh-oh. But yeah, we got a show for y'all. We're going to be talking about our thoughts and reaction on the 53-man roster. But before we get into that, let's give some love to our sponsors. And that is What a Clean Solutions. Need to get your carpets clean, couches, tile, and grout? Are you moving in or moving out? Need to get that place looking brand new? Call What a Clean Solutions, a family-owned mobile cleaning service that can clean anything from a small carpet to even making your car or truck look brand new. Give them a call at 210-790-1410. Also text them and they'll hit you up. You can hit them there. Or use the promo code TNT for 5% off your total cleaning. That is promo code T and the and sign T at 210-790-1410 for 5% off. What's going on, Shane? Okay, hear me?
It's going good. Yeah, I can hear you just fine. Sorry about that. Like I said, I'm out and about once again, but I'm here. I'm always down for some TNT, Taco Thursday as we call it. And
yes, sir.
You know, the Cowboys roster, because I feel like you just want to kind of jump right into it. There was no real big surprise, I feel like, except I wasn't surprised they moved on from Kelvin Joseph. I'm glad they got something for it.
Yeah.
I was surprised they did a straight up cornerback swap for Noah Igbenogany, who's been really more of a rotational cornerback since he was drafted by the Dolphins. And he adds more depth to what's become a position of strength, which is fine. I guess I didn't really see, I would rather them gotten some depth at the offensive line, which we'll talk about here in a little bit. The only surprise loss for me would have been Isaiah Land, the linebacker / edge rusher, who I thought did enough really to make the team. He had that versatility as an outside linebacker and as an edge rusher. And I was hoping at least that if they weren't going to keep him on the initial 53, that he can make the practice squad. He got picked up by the Colts practice squad. It's always a possibility they could always sign him off the practice squad at some point during the season if they really needed to. But that's a tough loss because he was one of my he was one of my favorite undrafted free agents, along with two other guys who did make the team, which we'll talk about here in a little bit.
Absolutely. We'll go into more details about Noah, but I definitely wanted to bring some context to people who haven't seen the 53-man roster. I did post it on my Google Sheets. Let me see how I got that. Now my camera wants to act up. I don't know, but can you hear me?
It's all good.
Okay. Yeah, we'll still continue on, but I got the 53-man roster. Yeah, that's the only biggest shock I see between that is like we did lose Land. I think that's a guy you've seen that what he played in the preseason. He was playing very well, definitely from he's a UFA kid, and there's some team that seen the potential and the coach seen that. But the good thing is he's on the practice squad. If they need a defensive end / linebacker like Isaiah Land, I think they would definitely hit him up because is it the probability is probably not there, but I could definitely see them. They're probably the next one. Like, okay, maybe we need a guy like that. Maybe if there's an injury, maybe we'll hit up Isaiah Land because we know what he is.
Yeah, and the undrafted free agent who made the team, who you and I both kind of had a feeling that he had like an inside track to make the team, was the guard TJ Bass, because the offensive line depth on the team ain't great as it is, but he actually came in I thought with some upside. I thought he should have been a 4th or 5th round pick. He's a guy who shows a lot of power in the run. We had questions about him in the pass protect. He actually had, according to Pro Football Focus, again, anytime I mention Pro Football Focus, take it with a grain of salt. But he did have the highest pass blocking grade of any Cowboys offensive lineman in the preseason in pass protection. So take that for what it's worth. He allowed no pressures, no sacks when played inside. And now they got him also practicing snaps at center because as of right now, for the guys they have on the team, they don't have a backup center. If we go based off the practice squad, they did bring back Brock. I forgot his name. Brock Hoffman. Sorry,
yeah, Brock Hoffman.
So if they wanted to, they can use him as a game day elevation. And you're allowed 3 elevations out the practice squad before you have to sign them to the roster. So I wonder if they don't try that, or if they want to see if TJ Bass can learn some at center. He showed what he can do as both a left and right guard. I think they really want to groom him and Austin Richards to be potential starters or key rotation pieces that they use between now and the next 2 to 3 years.
Yeah, then you beat me to my question. I was gonna ask you, do you think they could be the potential left and right guard for this team? Because Tyler Smith's gonna be the future left tackle right now.
Well, yeah, I mean, especially if you think about Zach Martin's going to be here at least till 2025 because of that extension. I think Austin Richards right now, if you ask me, was the better offensive lineman. He played some left tackle and some left guard. I love the versatility of that because we've talked about this before. Players who go from left tackle to right tackle ain't the same thing as going from left tackle to left guard. You ask any offensive lineman, the majority of them are going to say they'd rather move from outside to inside or vice versa than going from one side to the other. Just because the way your body shift changes is much more drastic than if you go from tackle to guard. I think just because I don't think Tyron Smith's going to be on this roster past this year, I feel that they wouldn't have restructured his deal if it weren't the case. Tyler Smith is the best left tackle we have on this team, but they wanted what seemed like the best 5, and that's fine. But I also think, and I think you'd agree, at some point Tyron Smith's going to miss time. So I think right now, if Tyron Smith would have missed time, the best option would be, yes, kick Tyler Smith out to left tackle. I want to give Austin Richards the 5th round pick. I want to give him a shot at left guard first. Yeah. Only because I know what I get out of TJ Bass, but I think Austin Richards provides more, like better pass protection, and as well as but I also think he has those long arms which can really frame yourself well, especially if you lack the strength. But I do wonder if TJ Bass isn't a better option at guard right now, despite the fact that he was an undrafted free agent. Again, the draft, where you're drafted is entirely subjective. But I think one of those guys play, unless of course they go out and get themselves another veteran, because we don't know what Chuma Edoga is going to look like, or what another new addition to the practice squad is going to look like.
Yeah, because looking right now, if they don't like TJ Bass at center, they basically have 2 guys. They got Brock Hoffman, who showed promise in preseason. I got a little bit on Sean Harlow. He's a center / guard, plays multiple positions. He actually played for Dan Quinn for the Falcons for 4 years. He's 28.
That's the attachment.
I wanted to put that in there because there's always some connection when it comes to Cowboys signing a player in some type of form. And that's the thing. His dad played in the league. He was an offensive tackle for the Patriots and the Raiders. He's 6'4", 284, a bit on the undersized side. The only thing I really seen on him, he's a position flex guy. He's not going to be trying to take Biash's spot. He's a backup center trying to compete with Hoffman, just in case we need that center for that 53-man roster. But most likely he's a practice squad type of guy.
Honestly, I would have rather them kept Matt Farniok at that point, because Matt Farniok, I feel like, is the better player. Since he was drafted in 2017, he has 8 starts to his name. Yeah. But everything I've read about this kid, and I haven't seen any tape, so I have to actually look at him more in depth. But everything I heard about him is that he is a depth piece, a journeyman for a reason, and that is because he does enough to make the team, but not enough that if he gives you confidence that he needs to take over some snaps. And since I question the depth of the offensive line as well as the health of their tackles and how they're going to shift the offensive line, because once again, I'm anticipating more musical chairs on the offensive line, which has been the case since Mike McCarthy's taken over. That's not necessarily his fault, but that has been a huge issue that they can't seem to set themselves on 5 surefire starters because there's always some sort of issue. And Sean Harlow, to me, gives me no confidence. I'd rather put a hurt Chuma Edoga out there than Sean Harlow. So I wasn't impressed with the signing.
Yeah, it was just kind of like a mid type of signing. Like, you've seen the name, and if you're like deep into the draft, maybe he rings a bell. But if you're just like the average fan, you're like, who's this guy? And you got to Google search and everything. Cause I never heard of him, to be honest with you. So I had to like.
He's an Oregon State kid, right?
Yeah, he's Oregon State. Yeah, I had that in notes too. That's all my notes I really have on him. No disrespect to him, I just couldn't find any film on him right now. Maybe there'll be some in the future. But
I've read reports on him. I've read the reports on him, and like the nicest thing that people said about him is that he gives you a veteran experience. And the problem is that not all experience is good experience. I'll leave it at that.
Yeah, that's kind of that's like trying to find something. You're like, oh, he's played in the league. That's kind of what they're saying almost. But
yeah, exactly.
The next guy we did talk a little bit about him, Noah Igbenogany. It took me forever to even try to pronounce his name.
We're gonna have to learn exactly how to pronounce his name.
Yeah, I seen like the pronunciation and everything, but he's a corner. He came out of Auburn. He was a 2020 guy, first round pick, 30 overall out of Auburn. Fun fact about him: both of his parents were Olympic Nigerian athletes. His dad was a triple jumper, and his mom was a sprinter. So you've seen he's an athlete. He ran like a sub 4.5. The thing I actually got to see a little film on him a little bit. He's a guy that needs to. He's sometimes a tad bit slow recognizing routes, but he's a solid tackler. Can be very solid in the run support. But what do you think his role on this team? And I know you probably watched a little bit on him.
I've also seen him play, but I remember when the drafts came around, like I didn't know if maybe playing safety wasn't his best position, but Miami flexed him between like a nickel and an outside corner. And the things that I read, it seemed like nickel was the best option for him. But that also brings me to a tweet that I put out not too long ago about like maybe that makes Jordan Lewis a trade candidate because as they trade him, they save just under $5 million cap space. And if they're going to start DaRon Bland, a cheaper option, which I feel like would be the best option, or do you want to pay a guy $5 million to be the backup? And I don't know if they want to do that. As far as Noah, I'm actually more curious to hear what you think based on the film you watched, just because I thought I saw a guy who played better in the nickel, who played better in space. Some people are saying he plays better on the outside, which is it's good to have that kind of versatility. I don't know. I don't know if what he can do gives me any more or less confidence than Kelvin Joseph. The only difference is that Noah has much more game tape of what he can do as a defender. Kelvin Joseph offered you nothing almost.
Yeah. The only difference between them is, like you were saying, is he got some more plays over Kelvin Joseph. And then when I watched the film, I seen more of a nickel who could play a little bit of boundary corner, but I think his bread and butter is being a depth nickel piece and then playing special team. I think special team where he's going to get a lot of his reps.
Oh, that speed's going to be useful on special teams too.
Yeah, he definitely could be a gunner for this team. And I think that's the role. I don't see him. He's not going to take Bland's spot. He's definitely not going to take Gilmore's spot. Definitely not going to take Diggs. So I have him right now until further notice if Lewis is going to be on the team or not, as that fighting between that 5th or 6th spot on the corner spot between him and Scott.
I think right now I would give Noah the edge just because of experience. But like you said, Lewis would be the 4th option. If that's the case, that would tell me that Noah is not only the 5th option, but he might be the outside option. But we also have to factor in the fact that Izzy McQuamu, the safety, was their 3rd best cornerback last year towards the stretch to the end of the year. And you have to wonder, like, just how many of these cornerbacks can play outside, because it sounds like we have a lot of guys who can play nickel more than anything else.
It's like literally all of our corners are fighting for that one position, but we only got like one guy outside of the 3 that could play really outside. Scott has potential, but it's like Lewis could play inside and outside because he get like how we go back into Noah. They got that experience to play both sides, but Lewis is the better corner compared to Noah so far.
I agree.
I think our next let me see if we like when it comes to the 53, we did add back Trent Sieg, the long snapper, and Udoga because we did put Wright, Nashon, and Waleska on IR and to
return.
But they got to return for was it week 4?
Yeah, once you put on IR to return, you can reevaluate after 4 weeks. If you start the season on the PUP list, you were out for at least the first 6 games, which is why they didn't want to do that with Jordan Lewis. I think they liked the way he's progressing, but because he hadn't really been in the game as much, I wonder if he would be a game day inactive, so that when he is healthy, they can just put him on the field, because you can't undervalue how well it is to have depth at corner. One of the more needed positions on the field. As far as you know, as far as the 53-man roster, like I mean, it was obvious what they were going to do with some of these vets because once you get a certain point in your career, you can be a game day cut that they can bring back. Yeah, it's like an under the table type of deal. It happens all the time. I'm surprised they didn't do that with Dante Fowler so they could retain somebody else. But it is what it is. That's fine. There was, I go back to what I said earlier. There was no real big surprise on the roster for how it was structured out. But also, I tweeted this out not too long ago that there's no such thing as a final roster. Those things are constantly changing. The roster we see now probably going to look different come game day.
It is. You're gonna see guys that were on this practice squad. They're gonna like out put them onto the 53 because. Do you think CJ Goodwin's gonna be on that 53 week one, or is that kind of like a?
No, of course he is.
Yeah.
He's going to be a call up guy that they have the first 3 weeks, and then when someone gets hurt or someone gets suspended or whatever it is, because it's going to happen, they call him up and he can just put him on the regular roster. He has been securing Cowboy bags for years, just being one of the best special teams gunners in the league. It's just an undervalued and underwhelmed position, but it's so useful, especially when you have someone like John Fossil as your special teams coordinator, considered across the league as one of the best guys at the as a special teams coordinator. So I trust what they're doing with him.
When the last thing on the 53 was Neville Gallimore a head scratcher for you, or is it, you kind of could see why they went that route?
I mean, not yes and no. It was only a head scratcher just because I'm surprised that they kept 5 DTs, 5 pure DTs, because I thought players like Junior Fehoko and DeMarcus Lawrence gave you depth at defensive tackle to where you only needed to keep the primary 4 of Mozzie, Hankins, Osa, and Golston. But, their defensive line is so good and so deep and they were able to retain some players because they went light at places like tight end and linebacker that they were able to probably keep extra better players. I give Neville Gallimore credit. I thought this was the year he was out. He outplayed Quentin Bohanna, and he did. He was the better player, and I do wonder really like how much of a leash they have on him because they could probably release him sometime this year if he gets out on the field and still proves nothing. I don't want guys who can perform well enough to earn the job, but they can't do enough in the regular season to keep the job.
Like you're saying, they're deep at the defensive line, and you got guys that can rotate and play 3 tech and play a little bit of 1 tech. So that was my biggest thing is like we got a lot of guys that with position flex that can still play at a high level. Like I get Gallimore, he's a draft guy, but maybe we're looking at a guy like if he shows a little promise, but he's inconsistent, maybe you use him as trade capital, like to get depth at certain positions during the season. That type of guy, maybe.
I don't know how much trade value he has, but I guess you probably could get a 7th for him from a team. Maybe a player swap because I mean the value of players are subjective by each organization.
Yeah, it's got to be a team that like okay, we're kind of running low on defensive tackles. He's a decent defensive tackle, hit or miss, depending on what game or so. But you said, he's going to be like if you're looking for a draft capital. I hope they don't go that route. Is do it like a player swap.
Sure.
Yeah. But going into one of our last things is, what is Trey Lance's role on this team? What
is it?
So his role, I think, on this team is when we're preparing for guys like Jalen Hurts and Josh Allen. That's going to be his main role, is getting the team prepared for the defense, prepared for quarterbacks like that, because he's a similar quarterback like that, but he doesn't have like the skills of like a Jalen Hurts or a Josh Allen, because that's the reason why he's not with the 49ers right now. That's why he was the number 3 quarterback, and then you had the Sam Darnold in the Brock.
There because of health.
Yeah.
He wasn't there because of health, and health really stunted his development. He still has that potential, and that's why the Cowboys had no problem using him. Day 3 pick on him because he has that potential to be that guy. I don't know if that means he's going to be the eventual successor. I don't even know if it necessarily means he's going to be the backup next year, because this year he's definitely the 3rd guy. But you're absolutely right in the fact that he's going to be the simulator in practice for those mobile quarterbacks and those quarterbacks that can throw the ball deep. Because that's two things Trey Lance can do. He can run fast and he can throw it deep. And they're going to play a lot of those guys. Players like Jalen Hurts, players like Justin Herbert, players like Josh Allen. We'll see Bryce Young at some point this year when they play the Panthers. They played Daniel Jones. Even though Daniel Jones, to me, is not even to me, he's inaccurate down the field. He can still throw the ball deep. He can throw it deep and he can run. That's two things he can definitely do. And I mentioned this the other day when I was on Primetime Cowboys, part of the Stadium Rant Network, that the one thing you want to do whenever you have a simulated practice is you want to have a guy that you can rely on to do that kind of thing. Because in the 2005-2006 Rose Bowl between Texas and USC, do you know what USC had to do in order to practice simulate Vince Young?
No.
Do you know?
They always had pocket passer.
They needed to recreate him using two players. So for his arm strength, they used John David Booty, who at the time was backing up Matt Leinart. That's a name for anyone who remembers John David Booty and his time with USC. And for his running ability and his size, because of the running style he used, because Vince Young was 6'5", 220, and he could move, they used tight end Fred Davis. So they had two guys simulate Vince Young because he was so unique, because he was able to throw the ball deep like John David Booty could, and they didn't want to get Matt Leinart hurt. He was their Heisman Trophy winning quarterback. And they used Fred Davis, who had the same build as Vince Young, and also the same speed as Vince Young at the tight end position. With Trey Lance, he can do the same stuff that a lot of these quarterbacks that we will face can do, just as a less developed way, and that's fine. If that's his role with his first year at the Cowboys, that's perfectly fine, because every team's third quarterback needs to be able to accurately portray as close as possible what the defense is expected to see from them on Sunday or Monday or whenever they play them. And Trey Lance will give you more from that than we saw from someone like Ben DiNucci or even Will Grier, as good as they were. DiNucci was much more mobile threat. Grier was much more of a passing threat. Trey Lance can give you a little bit of both. And that, at the very least, in his rookie season, will be where he's going to be so key.
Yeah. And that's what the Cowboys never really had, like you were talking about. They never had that backup quarterback that kind of could simulate quarterbacks they're playing against. Like Ben DiNucci and Will Grier were like what you've seen would get you ready for a Jalen Hurts type of quarterback. And this year, now you're playing against a guy like a Josh Allen. That's what. Another thing I like about having your backup quarterback to complement what your starting quarterback is. Like, just in case when he gets hurt, you could put him in. I know Cooper Rush right now is QB2. There could be a situation where Trey Lance may be QB2 in the future, but as of now, Cooper Rush is that. But I like that you have a quarterback that has similar traits to your starting quarterback, because that's what teams mostly should do, is have that quarterback that's kind of like similar to your starting quarterback, not a guy where you're doing a whole 360 on your offense. You're like, okay, we didn't make this switch and all here, and then your receivers got to get used to acclimated to a new offense playing with that quarterback.
I agree.
But I can go on a tangent with that, but I know we're kind of short on time.
No, I know. It's fine. I wanted to point out two things before we get out of here. One is that I'm still working on organizing an NFC's preview show. I'm having a few issues with some guests just because right now the East Coast is being hit by some hurricane stuff. Yeah. We need to let them we need to let them get through that. We need to be patient with that. I'm not going to force anything on anybody, because I have people that I trust that cover those teams, that I want their expertise. I want their ability to come out here and make a good show. Those are the people that I want to use. So I need people to be a little bit more patient with that, because I have had people ask me about that kind of thing. And the other thing is, I want to say rest in peace to Gil Brandt, one of the all-time great Cowboys. He didn't play for the team, but he was part of the decision-making from 1960 until Jerry Jones bought the team. He was there for 2 of the 5 Super Bowls that were played in from 1960 to 1980, or he was responsible for two of the wins of the 5 Super Bowls they appeared in from 1960 to 1988. He was enshrined as the 22nd member of the Cowboys Ring of Honor back in 2018. Lived until 91. And if you ask anybody who has ever covered the Cowboys as a reporter in depth, they've said nothing but great things about him, how generous and how kind he was. And the Cowboys Nation owes him everything. And I don't know what you can say, but thank you, Gil, for everything.
Yeah, absolutely. Thinking about like all the players from the '60s into the '80s, there's a lot of greats. I'm just gonna bring a couple of them. There's like a Roger Staubach. You got Tony Dorsett's, your Drew Pearson's,
Yep.
and a lot of other players that you can go on for
It was
song.
Gil.
Yeah, like Rayfield Wright. Like
Yep.
those.
Rayfield Wright.
There are a lot of those
Everson
guys.
Walls.
Yeah, that's another one. That's Dallas native too. Yeah, there's a lot of great players that came from Gil Brandt that he brought in there, and there's a lot of great years with Dallas Cowboys. Rest in peace to Gil Brandt for sure.
Yes, sir.
Yeah, he lived a long, fulfilled life. Yes, sir. But on Friday, we do got I got a show with the mock draft guys, so we're gonna be talking a little bit about. He's a New York Jets fan, and
Nice.
a little bit about college football as well. So we're gonna go a little talk to. It's kind of been one of those conversations we were talking about. We're gonna do a show, but it comes to schedules and work and everything. But we're definitely gonna have him on. It's gonna be a good show on Friday, and I can't wait for that NFC East preview. But like you said, everybody just be patient. What's going on in the East Coast of the United States? It's more like making sure they're good, and that's the most important part. Yeah. But this has been Tacos and Touchdowns. Y'all have a good one. Peace.
Peace.